Welcome, time travelers. History is a grand, epic tale filled with wars, conquests, and revolutions. But beyond the battles and the kings and queens, there exists an entirely different side of history, one filled with the bizarre, the absurd, and the downright unbelievable. Today, we're taking you on a journey through time to uncover 27 of the strangest, most mind-blowing historical facts that sound too weird to be real, but absolutely are. Buckle up, because things are about to get weird. Let's start at the very beginning. Ancient times, where some of the world's most powerful civilizations thrived. Take ancient Egypt, a land of towering pyramids and pharaohs who were considered living gods. These rulers weren't just worshipped, they were believed to have divine powers that extended to every part of life. So much so that their spit was considered sacred. That's right, their saliva was thought to have healing properties. Imagine standing in line at the doctor's office, only for the cure to be a royal loogie. But that's just the beginning. The ancient Greeks, arguably some of history's greatest thinkers, had a very different idea of napkins than we do today. Instead of using cloth or paper, they cleaned their hands with bread. After eating, they'd simply wipe their greasy fingers on a piece of bread and then feed it to the dogs or even to the poor. Dinner with the Greeks, a truly hands-on experience. Then we have ancient Rome, where hygiene was both sophisticated and horrifying. Romans were obsessed with cleanliness, but their toothpaste? Urine. The ammonia in urine was thought to whiten teeth and disinfect wounds. It was so valuable that the emperor taxed it. Imagine paying a tax on your own pee. And let's not forget their public bathrooms, where dozens of people sat together on long benches with no dividers. Need toilet paper? No problem. Just reach for a shared sponge on a stick that had been used by countless others before you. A horrifying thought by today's standards, but for the Romans, just another Tuesday. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, and things don't get any less weird. In fact, some of history's most ridiculous events happened during this time. Take medieval animal trials, a real thing that actually happened. Animals, including pigs, goats, and even insects, were put on trial for crimes. One infamous case, in 1386, saw a pig, dressed in human clothes, and publicly executed for biting a child. You might think the judges would go easy on a pig, but nope. The full force of medieval law applied to everyone. But perhaps the most absurd case of medieval justice was the cadaver synod. Imagine being put on trial after your death. That's exactly what happened to Pope Formosus in 897 AD. His body was dug up, dressed in full papal robes, and put on trial by a new pope who, well, really hated him. The verdict? Guilty. His body was desecrated and tossed into the river. Medieval politics were next-level petty. And then there was the dancing plague of 1518, a real, unexplained event where people literally danced until they died. It started with one woman who suddenly began dancing uncontrollably in the streets of Strasbourg. Within days, dozens joined her. Within weeks, hundreds were dancing non-stop, unable to stop, even as their bodies gave out from exhaustion. Historians still debate what caused it: mass hysteria, poisoned bread, or even some kind of cult ritual gone wrong. Whatever the reason, it remains one of history's most chilling mysteries. The Renaissance was a time of art, science, and apparently live flea accessories. In 16th century France, the wealthy carried flea furs, small pieces of fur with cages inside them designed to attract fleas away from their bodies. Picture a lady in an elegant dress, gently petting a flea-infested fur hanging around her neck. And people say the past was glamorous. Then there's the Great Moon hoax of 1835. Newspapers published an elaborate story claiming that life had been discovered on the moon, complete with bat-like humanoids and lush jungles. People were captivated until it was revealed to be a complete fabrication. And speaking of wild hoaxes, in Victorian England, photography was expensive, so families often waited until a loved one died to take their first and only portrait with them. The deceased were propped up, their eyes sometimes painted open, and posed to look as lifelike as possible. Some were even photographed with their living family members. Morbid? Definitely. But for Victorians, it was just another way to remember their loved ones. The 20th century brought wars, revolutions, and one of history's strangest battles, the Great Emu War of 1932. In Australia, a massive emu population was destroying farmland, so the military stepped in with machine guns. But despite their superior firepower, the soldiers found themselves outmaneuvered by giant, fast-moving birds. After weeks of failed attacks, the Australian government admitted defeat. Yes, an entire army lost to birds. Then there's Operation Paul Bunyan, a military response by the United States to a tree. In 1976, North Korean soldiers attacked and killed 2 American officers who were trimming a tree in the Korean demilitarized zone. The U.S. response? A full-scale show of force involving bombers, warships, and hundreds of soldiers, all to finish cutting down the tree. And in World War II, both sides developed bizarre military strategies, including disguising artillery as fake trees. These hollow tree trunks housed hidden snipers and spotters, allowing soldiers to spy on enemy movements in the middle of battlefields. And let's not forget the time the U.S. government experimented with bat bombs, a plan to strap small incendiary devices to bats and release them over Japan, hoping they'd nest in buildings before igniting. The plan was abandoned, but not before some test bats accidentally burned down a military base. History is full of stories that sound like fiction but are completely true. From dancing plagues to animal trials, royal spit to war against birds. These stories prove that the past wasn't just shaped by kings and conquerors, but also by the strange, the absurd, and the unexpected. Which historical fact blew your mind the most? Let us know in the comments. And if you love history that's weird, wild, and completely unexpected, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more. Until next time, remember, the past is far stranger than we could ever imagine.